The night felt especially still as I drove into my driveway, my headlights illuminating the pavement in front of me. Just as I reached for the car door, something moved quickly. A cat jumped onto the hood. This wasn't just any cat, she seemed urgent. Her green eyes met mine, filled with a pleading intensity. Then she meowed and hopped down, glancing back at me as if she wanted me to follow her. I paused, my heartbeat quickening. What was she trying to communicate? Why did it feel like she had a message for me? Carefully, I got out of the car, keeping my eyes on the stray. Instead of running away, she turned and walked a few paces ahead, stopping to look back as if waiting for me to join her. I sensed this encounter was significant. She truly wanted me to come along. "Okay, where are we headed?" I asked softly, stepping forward. She guided me down the street, weaving past parked cars and toward an abandoned lot in my neighborhood. This area was overrun with weeds, a place that had been forgotten between two houses. Then I heard them, tiny high-pitched cries coming from beneath some wooden planks. As I crouched down, my flashlight cast light into the shadows. There, nestled in a small makeshift nest, were 3 tiny kittens, huddled together with matted fur, blinking up at me. The mother cat, whom I began to think of as Luna, nudged my leg and let out a low, urgent meow. She wasn't merely showing me her kittens, she was asking for help. I felt a tightness in my chest. I had never rescued animals before, but leaving them here wasn't an option. The temperature was dropping, and they surely needed someone to notice them. Taking a steadying breath, I realized this was not how my evening was supposed to unfold, yet I couldn't simply walk away. Carefully, I reached out toward the kittens, unsure of their reaction. As I extended my hand, the smallest kitten flinched, pressing against its siblings. The second, an orange tabby, gave a tiny hiss, trying to warn me off. But the third, a fluffy gray kitten, lifted its head and offered a soft, trusting mew. Luna circled around me, rubbing against my leg and nudging her babies, encouraging them. She was asking me to take them into my care. "All right, little ones, it seems we're in this together," I said, gently scooping them up. They felt so light, their small bodies barely filling my hands. I nestled the tiny kittens inside my hoodie to keep them warm, feeling their rapid heartbeats against my chest. Luna joined me as I made my way back to the car. As soon as I opened the door, she hopped into the passenger seat without a second thought, settling in comfortably. There was no hesitation, just a deep-seated trust that this was the right choice to protect her little ones. Driving home, it hit me. I had no plan. I wasn't particularly familiar with cats, and my schedule was already packed. Now I had 4 tiny lives relying on me. Yet, when I glanced at Luna, she looked at me with calm, knowing eyes, and I couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps she had selected me for this role. It wasn't about my choice, it was about hers. That night, I transformed my spare room into a cozy nursery. I fashioned a bed out of an old laundry basket lined with towels and placed a dish of water nearby, hoping Luna would drink. While I didn't have much knowledge about caring for newborn kittens, I figured keeping them warm and fed was a good start. The room carried a soft scent of dust and fabric softener, but the little family seemed unfazed. Luna curled up next to her kittens, tucking them close, and for a brief moment I dared to think that everything would be okay. At around 3 a.m., I was jolted awake by a loud cry. This was different from the usual soft mews. I hurried to the room and found Luna pacing anxiously around the basket. While her other kittens were huddled together, something seemed off. My heart sank as I noticed one of them, Shadow, wasn't moving. Feeling my pulse race, I gently lifted her. She felt lifeless in my hands, her body cold and barely breathing. Panic crashed over me. I was out of my depth. With trembling hands, I grabbed my phone and called Sarah, my closest friend and the only person I knew who had experienced fostering animals. "I don't know what to do," I said urgently as soon as she picked up. "One of the kittens, she isn't moving." Sarah arrived within 15 minutes, her hair tousled from sleep, but with a clear, focused demeanor. She examined Shadow, her expression turning serious as she assessed the frail little body. "She's weak, likely malnourished. We need to warm her up immediately and take her to a vet first thing in the morning." I wrapped Shadow in a soft fleece blanket, cradling her against my chest in a bid to bring her warmth. The kitten hardly stirred. Luna sat nearby, her ears twitching and golden eyes focused on me, as if she truly understood the seriousness of the situation. I felt the heavy burden of responsibility settle in. This was more than just taking in stray animals, it was about their lives. I had come to help, but now I was confronted with the unsettling truth that not every rescue story ends happily. I really didn't want to lose her. As I held Shadow, I sensed the tension in the room. Sarah, usually so composed, was now tinged with anxiety. "You're doing everything you can," she reassured me, but her tone suggested doubt. "We can't control the outcome. All we can do is give her a fighting chance." I nodded in agreement, though it felt insufficient. Luna paced, her gaze shifting between me and her kittens. It was clear she was just as anxious, and I could tell Sarah's calm exterior was cracking under the pressure. "What if she doesn't survive?" I whispered, voicing the fear that weighed on my mind. "Then we've done our best," Sarah responded, though I noticed her hands trembled slightly as she prepared a warm compress for Shadow. In that instant, I understood how much this experience was changing me. I had signed up to rescue animals, thinking it would be a straightforward act of kindness. But this was different. This was about real lives, and the stakes were far higher than I had anticipated. I looked over at Luna, who was intensely focused on Shadow. She didn't need words to express her understanding. She felt the gravity of the situation just as deeply. She wasn't giving up, and neither could I. Those next few days were a whirlwind. I followed Sarah's guidance, keeping Shadow warm and using a syringe to feed her, trying to help her fragile body. I dedicated hours to learning how to care for newborn kittens, hoping I didn't make any mistakes. The other kittens, Whiskers, Ginger, and Luna, seemed to be doing all right, but the fear lingered like a dark shadow. Would Shadow pull through? But my challenges weren't just limited to caring for the kittens. Mrs. Thompson, the elderly neighbor who always fed the local strays, noticed them one afternoon. "Jake, are those cats in your house?" she asked, curiosity clear in her voice. I nodded. "Yeah, they've been here for a few days." Her expression hardened. "I don't want any cats hanging around. My porch is already full of strays, and they're not good for the neighborhood. You need to find a way to get rid of them before they cause trouble." Her words surprised me. Mrs. Thompson had been kind to me before, but this was different. It felt like more than just advice. She was giving me an ultimatum. I had to either find a way to handle the cats or prepare for her complaints. Letting go of the kittens was not an option for me, especially while they were still so vulnerable. Yet, I could sense the tension building. I was already dealing with my worries about Shadow's health, and now I faced the challenge of figuring out what to do with these cats in the long term. As I reflected on Mrs. Thompson's demands, I felt increasingly uneasy. Giving up the cats didn't sit right with me. They relied on me, and Luna had entrusted her kittens to my care. Still, I could also see where Mrs. Thompson was coming from. There were indeed too many stray cats around, and some had made their way into her garden, scratching her plants and causing trouble. Adding to my confusion was how much I was starting to care for these kittens. I had never considered myself a cat person, yet now I couldn't imagine letting them go. Ginger would jump into my lap every chance she got, curling up and purring contentedly. Whiskers was the little adventurer, exploring every corner of the house with his curious eyes following my every move. And even Shadow, fragile as he was, would gently nudge my fingers as if to say, "Thank you for saving me." But the situation made me question my feelings. Was my attachment genuine care, or was I being emotionally selfish? What would happen if I couldn't keep them? Should I adopt them, or was I setting myself up for heartbreak later on? I found myself caught between my desire to do right by these kittens and the reality of my own limitations. Just when I thought I might have a grasp on things, a new problem arose unexpectedly. It was 2 days after Shadow started to show signs of improvement when it happened. I was in the backyard checking on Luna and the kittens when I heard rustling from the bushes at the edge of the yard. My first instinct was that it was another stray cat, and my stomach dropped. But when I turned around, the sight that met my eyes was far more alarming. A neighbor's dog, a big, scruffy terrier, had somehow escaped his yard and was heading straight for the kittens. His loud, frantic barking sent Luna into a panic. I felt a wave of dread as I saw him leap toward the basket where the kittens were sleeping. Without thinking, I dashed toward the dog, yelling, "No, leave them alone!" I barely reached him in time to grab his collar, pulling him away with all the strength I had. My heart raced as I quickly checked on the kittens. They were shaken but unharmed. Luna had already picked them up in her mouth and moved them to a safer spot in the yard. But the dog wasn't finished. His owner, Mrs. Jensen, from 2 houses down, hurried over, looking frantic. "I'm so sorry, Jake. He's never done this before," she exclaimed. I felt a mix of anger and shock. What if I hadn't been there? What if the kittens had gotten hurt? These thoughts raced through my mind, making me question how safe I could really keep them in a world filled with such dangers. After that incident, things really changed for the kittens. Luna became even more protective, vigilantly watching every corner of the yard. She hardly left their side, always keeping them close, either tucked under a blanket or snuggled in a safe corner of the house. It seemed like she understood just how risky the world could be for her little family, and she was determined to keep them safe. I also began to notice something shifting between me and the kittens. A deeper emotional bond was forming. Each time I fed them or cleaned their bedding, it felt like I was doing more than just my duty. I was becoming part of their lives. Whiskers would climb onto my lap, curling up and purring whenever I settled down. Ginger, the sweet one, would weave around my legs, eager for attention. Even Shadow, who once seemed so fragile, now followed me around, mewing softly yet insistently. At first, I thought my commitment to their care was just a responsibility. I had promised to look after them, after all. But as the days went by, I recognized that it was more than that. I was building a genuine connection. They had started to feel like family, and with that realization came a heavier weight of responsibility. What if I couldn't keep them safe? I began to open up to Sarah about the future. "Do you think I could adopt them all?" I asked one evening, my voice filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty. She met my gaze, her eyes warm and understanding, as if she knew exactly what I was feeling. "Jake, if you're asking, you probably already have an idea of what the answer might be." A week passed, and each day felt like a struggle. I wanted to do what was best for the kittens, but I was also grappling with the reality that I might not be able to give them everything they required. Luna and her little ones were thriving, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that things were slipping away from me. Mrs. Thompson had been more vocal about her concerns regarding the cats, and her pressure was becoming harder to bear. Just yesterday she said, "I'm not saying you need to get rid of them right this second, but you should think about what's best for the neighborhood." Her tone was firm, almost like a reminder of an unspoken deadline hanging over my head. The tension was growing harder to ignore. Just as I was starting to feel overwhelmed, I received a call from Leo, the local vet, introducing a new wave of uncertainty. "Jake, you should bring Luna and the kittens in," Leo said, his voice steady yet urgent. "We've noticed some signs that could develop into a bigger problem if not treated promptly." I went still. What else could possibly go wrong? A sense of unease settled into my stomach. Was I truly ready for this? Walking into the vet's office, I realized just how attached I had become. I didn't want to let them go. As Leo conducted a series of tests, doubts started creeping in. Was I making the right choice? The future of the kittens loomed uncertain before me, and I felt increasingly powerless. When the test results arrived, they brought unwelcome news. Luna and her kittens had contracted a parasite. Thankfully, it was treatable if caught early, but it required a strict routine of medication. Leo had his reservations, stressing that if I failed to follow the care plan or couldn't keep them isolated, things could turn dire. The stakes had risen dramatically. Sitting in the small exam room, I examined the paperwork Leo had handed me. The reality of the situation weighed heavily on me. Luna's trusting green eyes looked back at me, while her kittens played on the floor, blissfully unaware of the threats surrounding them. "Jake," Leo interjected, pulling me from my thoughts. "You need to consider, can you manage this? Are you ready to meet their needs, or should you think about finding them another home?" The idea of finding them another home caught me off guard. How could I even consider that? After everything we had experienced together, the thought of letting them go felt unimaginable. Then, the truth sank in. I couldn't keep them forever. I was struggling to manage my own life, and caring for 4 energetic kittens was more than I had anticipated. "I don't know," I admitted quietly, my voice trembling. "I thought I could handle it, but now, I'm not so sure." Leo nodded slowly, his face softening in understanding. "It's all right to feel that way, Jake. It's better to make a choice now rather than waiting until it becomes too late." I found myself at a difficult juncture. The days after our visit to the vet were filled with uncertainty. I tried to follow the treatment plan diligently, giving the kittens their medication. However, the stress was starting to weigh heavy on me. My tensions with Mrs. Thompson were increasing. Every encounter with her reminded me that time was slipping away. At home, the kittens grew more playful and affectionate, and each moment I witnessed them enjoying life with Luna reminded me of the difficult decision ahead. Luna had placed her trust in me, and I had grown fond of all of them. Yet I had to confront the reality. The future was unpredictable, and I wasn't sure if I could manage everything. It wasn't just about my ability to care for them, it was about their well-being. Was I truly doing right by keeping them in my small home? Would they thrive better in a different environment with a family that could offer more stability? One evening, as I sat on the couch watching the kittens dart around, I came to a realization I hadn't wanted to face. I was scared. Scared of letting them down. Scared of making the choice to part with them. "Jake, you have to decide." Sarah's voice broke through my thoughts. "This can't drag on forever." The moment had arrived. I had to confront the situation. It wasn't just about my readiness. It was about whether they were prepared for what lay ahead. I knew a final decision had to be reached. It felt like a moment suspended in time, one that stretched endlessly. In the past few weeks, I had worried, hoped, and debated. But now, the reality was unavoidable. The kittens had thrived under my care, yet the pressing question remained, what would come next? That night, after I finished feeding all the kittens and tucking them into their cozy little bed, I found myself alone in the quiet living room. Luna sat by my feet, her deep, knowing eyes fixed on me. I felt worn out, both in body and mind. Yet, as I sat there, something shifted. The weight of my indecision began to ease. I reflected on the pressure from Mrs. Thompson and the advice Leo had shared. I thought about the vet's concerns, along with the stark realization that I couldn't provide everything these kittens needed. It struck me that they had become more than just pets. They were family now. Despite the love I had developed for them, I recognized the hard truth. I couldn't keep them in my small home indefinitely. They truly deserved a better life. Sometimes, the right choice isn't the easiest one, but deep down, I understood that finding them safe and loving homes was what they needed most. So, I made the call. Leo was on board to assist with the adoption process. Although it was the toughest decision I had ever faced, as I took one last look at Luna, I felt in my heart that it was the right move. They would have the opportunity for a life I couldn't provide, but one they truly deserved. The weeks that followed had their own mixture of emotions. Luna and her kittens were placed in a wonderful foster home where they could flourish. I made a few visits and witnessed their growth. They became stronger and more confident each day. Luna remained the watchful mother, and her kittens began to navigate the world independently, step by step. I wish I could say that everything was smooth sailing afterward, that letting them go was seamless, and I never looked back. But the truth is, the ache of that goodbye hasn't fully faded. I often find myself thinking about them, the way Whiskers would curl up on my lap or how Ginger's loud purring resonated through me. Luna's gaze, filled with trust and gratitude, is still fresh in my memory. Yet, isn't that the essence of rescue? It involves making tough choices, even when the path is unclear, and prioritizing what's best for the animals, even at the cost of feeling like you're losing a part of yourself. The kittens are thriving in their new homes, and Luna has found a loving family that adores her. While I didn't keep them, I gave them the strongest chance at a life filled with love and security. And perhaps, in the end, that's what truly matters. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice, like whether to help an animal in need or consider letting it go? I invite you to share your experiences in the comments. If this story resonated with you, consider showing your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing for more uplifting stories about rescue. Your engagement means a lot on this journey.